Welcome to Fraction of a Teacher, a podcast where two early career teachers chat about what we're learning and what we've still got to learn in the wild world of teaching. I'm Francis.
And I'm Jen. We're back, but this time it's a little different. We were PTC trainees and now we're early career teachers, stepping into our first full year in the classroom. We share the reality of life as new teachers, the wins, the wobbles, and everything in between. So let's dive in.
Hi, and welcome back to Fraction of a Teacher. Hi, Francis. How are you?
Really good, thanks. Yeah, it's been a funny week. Back up to speed, up early in school, but it really fun. I actually feel great for another week back in school, and not that long till the end of term now.
I know, and it's a really weird. So it's a bit of a different episode today, because me and Francis are actually in the same building, which never happens. So we're actually sitting next to each other, which is so nice to see you in my house.
Yeah, and thank you very much for the coffee in the Fraction of a Teacher mug. It's not just us today.
No, it's not. Do you want to introduce our guest?
So good morning to Laura, who has really kindly joined us. My understanding, I think you replied to and asked on the Now Teach forum, which was to say, are there any people who've career changed from something else into teaching through the support of Now Teach, the charity that supports career changers coming into teaching, who'd be happy to come on a podcast? And Laura kindly said yes. So I'm really excited about hearing about Laura's journey into teaching, how she's getting on now as an ECT2, and hearing about where Laura's going in the future. So welcome, Laura.
Good morning.
It's lovely to have you with us. Are you happy to give us sort of bit of a intro to where you're at and your sort of current role and what you teach and things for our listeners?
Okay, well, the most relevant bit was that I'm a maths teacher, a second year ECT this year. I did career change into being a maths teacher. I actually never ever thought I'd be a maths teacher, but I've been working remarkably in the same school for this is my 5th academic year, which I was, when I counted up on my fingers the other day, I was a bit shocked to discover that, because I had a viscerally negative reaction to schools when I took my 4-year-olds to have a little look round reception. So I really genuinely didn't think I'd ever be a teacher, but Here we are.
Wow. So you've done 5 years in your school. You're an ECT2.
Yes.
You never thought you'd be a teacher. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. So I have to say, I'm not one of these career change people who woke up as a teenager and thought, I've always wanted to be a teacher, but people said it was a terrible job and went and did something else. And then thought, I've been motivated to do this my entire life. I was quite happy in my professional career until about 2010, I think. I started being a bit over it. I was working in IT. I'd got a good 10 to 15 years of experience coming up at that point, and every day was just the same. So I was looking for something different, but I changed roles within the organisation that I was working for. However, I got made redundant in 2014, and that was a real opportunity to do something completely different. So I opened a running shop, because I thought, why not? I actually had always wanted to have a shop. So I did achieve that goal. And I had a very successful retail business for a number of years and ran ultra marathons and cycled a lot and things. Wow. Unfortunately, in 2019, my husband was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. That's been a life-changing moment, as you can imagine. So I think at the time we were both just over 40 and had 2 young children, and COVID hit then as well, of course, which changed a lot of people's perspectives, I think, on life anyway. But I was challenged to deal with that situation. But after he died, there was this massive void in my life, obviously, where it'd been all consuming looking after him and caring for him while he was unwell, and the children. And our house had been full of carers and health professionals, and all of a sudden it was empty, literally empty. The children were at school and I was just sat there, and I'd closed my retail business when he'd been diagnosed. And I think that was okay with that decision. It was just before COVID. It was probably the right choice and an unfortunate circumstances, but led to a good decision there. But what was I going to do with my life now, as a widow with 2 small children who are both neurodiverse and quite intense needs there, especially even if it was just, and I use that term lightly because I don't like the word just, even if it was just because their dad had died, they needed me there more than anything else. Going back to a very intensive career job in the city or something when I'm far, far away from the city was really outside of the realms of sensible choice at that point. But I wanted to do something. Actually, at that point, I was just thinking, I need to get out of the house and do something. And I need to speak to somebody that isn't my child.
Yeah.
Preferably an adult. That would be good. I had a friend who is wonderful and she'd helped look after my husband, totally bonkers. And she said to me, well, they need invigilators at the local high school for its exam season because it was May.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what does that involve? And she said, glowering at children. And I said, well, I'm not very good at glowering, but I could be in the room if they need a body. So she said, yeah, okay, well, just fill out this application form and speak to so-and-so. And so I did. They were desperate for people, as I think most schools generally are for invigilators. It's quite hard to find people. And off I went. About 2 weeks into that, so I was quite happy, rocking up, doing my little bit of invigilation and going home again and getting a bit of pocket money. And I had a few conversations, not many conversations with adults when you're an invigilator, because you have to be silent. So that was a bit of a letdown. Well, being silent and doing exams is definitely not one of my strong points. So it was quite hard. But someone stopped me in the corridor one day and said, we've got this job going and we think we'd be really good at it. And I sort of remember them thrusting an application form into my hands and then me filling it out, not really knowing what I was applying for, actually. And then being ushered into a room a couple of days later. Saying, oh, this is the deputy head, blah, blah, blah. And this is the head of maths. And my face must have just gone, what? The head of maths? I said, head of maths? And they said, oh, yes, the job is in maths. And I said, well, I can't do that. And they said, why not? I said, well, I didn't even pass my maths GCSE the first time round, so I can't work in maths. Don't be so silly. This is not, no, I can't do this. And she said, she was lovely, and she said, well, don't worry, it's only GCSE. You'll be better than them. I was like, I don't know how, but okay. So I was a bit confused, but anyway, she said, well, it's helping young teenagers who are unable to come to school or unable to go to maths lessons. So this was 2022 academic year. So it was just when schools had gone back after COVID. And there was a lot of young people who transitioned into secondary schools with no transition, actually. They'd just been dumped in secondary school. And they were finding it incredibly difficult. And there was some COVID money for supporting their reintegration into the school system, I guess is the way to put it. And she said there's quite a lot of girls in the school who are clearly quite capable academically, but they just, for various reasons, won't set foot in a maths classroom. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that is something I can help with, because I didn't enjoy maths at school, clearly. I didn't pass maths first time, so I don't think I'm a genius at maths. And so maybe I can help them with that. And that is where it all started, really.
Wow. So you were sort of headhunted for a role that you didn't really
I like that term, headhunt.
Know about or understand. I loved it. And then did you enjoy that job?
I loved it. And I'm still at the same school now, and those girls are in year 13. They call me Laura. That first group. Laura, this is Laura. To anyone who listens, Laura, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a maths GCSE. And I probably wouldn't be at school right now. And it's so nice. And they really mean it, because teenagers also never say things to teachers that they don't mean, that are nice. You know.
So cool.
Particular two girls as well, the first two, were actually doing higher, which clearly I hadn't done any higher maths. And so we walked in, and their first topic was surds, which I'd never heard that term before. I was like,
start something meaty.
I have no idea what a surd is, girls. So you're gonna have to explain it to me. And that's how we went.
Wow.
They taught me maths, and that worked, because they suddenly realised that not everybody knows it all, and it's just that they haven't woken up and magically known it all one day. So they taught me, we taught each other. We talked through it, and we got them back into the classroom within 8 weeks.
Wow.
Which was pretty successful.
That's incredible. So
that's incredible.
You'd made such a difference immediately, and you made a complete difference to these girls' life.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. It's one of the
Wow.
things that keeps me going is that, we can all do that. And was it easy? It wasn't easy. We started out, we worked in a separate room completely, and eventually I would go to the lessons with them. I got to play the pirate game at the end of term. Of course, I was the target of everybody in the room because I was an adult, but I wasn't out at the beginning, so that was quite good.
I've never played the pirate game, I'm
Never
afraid.
played the pirate game. Well, you have
Yeah.
to look up the pirate
Yeah.
game and play it because it's the end of term maths game.
Yeah, I was sort of told at my first placement school by one of the really experienced maths teachers, you've got to do this. And it,
I hate it, actually.
I can honestly see why, but I'm not the biggest fan. But
No, I'm not.
I can see why kids quite like going back to it.
They actually, I only do it at the end of big term, at the end of school year.
Okay, yeah, good advice.
That's my rule. But they always ask for it. Yeah, so that was the start of my journey, and I thought, actually, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy working with the teenagers. They're funny. They make me laugh on a daily basis. What is really nice is that I've seen them all through their journey through school. Those children now. And they're coming to tell me the universities that they're applying to and what they're going to do next. And it's really, really nice.
That is awesome.
That is amazing.
But I can see that that got you hooked by the sound of it. I'm guessing by that point you couldn't see yourself doing anything else that wasn't in a school, sort of.
It wasn't so much that. It was like, okay, this is a place where I can make a difference. So I've reached a point in my life where I was looking for a career that I could do until I retired, perhaps, where I could use my previous experience, it would benefit, wherever I could give something back to my community that I live in. That was quite important to me. So I live in a very rural area, so I wanted to be able to be around for my children, but also to have a job that stimulated my mind. And there aren't that many of those in rural areas. You're quite limited without long commutes. And so working in our local school seemed like a really sensible choice. And I started out as a TA, which is incredibly undervalued financially.
Yeah.
And, the following academic year after that first part, I was working as an unqualified teacher in a small classroom with groups of students who were, for example, I had a group of visually impaired students. So, and the head of maths had sort of said, I think half joking but half meaningly, she'd said, "Oh, we'll have you as a maths teacher in no time." And that kind of stuck in my head. I was like, that planted a little seed, maths teacher. And do you know what? My background's IT. I actually thought I'd go and do computer science, but computer science, there's a massive shortage of computer science teachers, so I don't think it would have been too bad to do that. But maths is a core subject. In terms of job security, I figured I'm never not going to have a job if I want one as a maths teacher. And I have to say that was quite a big part of it. And there was a bursary to train as a maths teacher as well. So it made it a slightly easier financial decision to do that year of training. Because I think if I'd have had no income, that would have been impossible.
Yeah, I think for career changes particularly, people like yourselves who came in, when you've got other, commitments, and I think it's a really
you've got children and a household to run. You can't really have no income, can you?
No, and I agree. And I think there's something about that core subject that I quite enjoy teaching, not least, see the pupils lots. It's pretty critical to make a difference in their future careers and lives. And as you say, there's several maths teachers in every school. So now I think it sounds like sort of similar thing drew you in.
The other weird thing, which is kind of good, kind of bad about it being a core subject, is nobody gets to choose it. So they have to do it. It's weird because you get this bizarre mix of some people who like it and some people who loathe doing maths and think it's torture on a daily basis. And until they get to A-level, you've never got people who've chosen. Even if they're really good at it, it doesn't matter whether you've got streamed kids or non-streamed kids. Even if they're in top set, some of them don't want to be there because they just don't like maths all that much. They're just smart.
Yeah. And that's the reason I chose it, because I want to reach every kid, not the ones who just chose it as something they love doing. And it does. It's everywhere. Math is absolutely everywhere. If you can give them the life skills just to even manage their bank account, I feel like you've imparted knowledge they're going to need. They maybe not see it now,
No.
but when they leave, they're going to be. But
Well, I think one of the things I say is, and I was really inspired by a physics teacher who was at our school, who's sadly left, because she was absolutely brilliant, passionate, young female physics teacher with a PhD in physics. You don't get those very often. And she said to me, and I've repeated this multiple times to kids, so people don't generally say that they're illiterate. It's something you hide. But people of the public, all people, are generally the first to go, oh, I'm terrible at maths. But you wouldn't go, oh, I'm terrible at reading. I just can't do it. And if I went to the supermarket right now, and I would say this to him, if I go to the supermarket right now, stand outside with a clipboard and ask 100 people, the first 100 that walk through the door, can you read and write? They'll go, yeah. Can you do maths? The ones who say, can you do maths, who would actually voluntarily say yes, tend to be like accountants, engineers, so people who use it in their job. Everybody who walked through that door can do maths. I promise they can. They're functioning as a person in society, so I think they can. Whether, they're budgeting how much they need to go around the supermarket, have they got enough? Whatever it is, paying their bills, you've let it be okay to say, oh, I'm not good at maths. And when you say that repeatedly in front of your children, if you're a parent, they think it's okay to not be good at maths and therefore to not try.
Yeah.
They didn't get their maths GCSE. So I'm probably not going to get mine. So there's no point trying, is there?
I think the main thing I have to do in my class is build resilience about if they get to a problem that they don't understand. It's saying, okay, but what's your first step here? Because you know something, because you haven't just walked into this class for the first time. You've got to this point. What do we know to get you here? And when you start building that resilience, it takes a while, but you will start seeing some progress because they then go, okay, I always say to you, don't I? It's this culture having a productive struggle. It's okay to struggle and not get it straight away. And it'd be okay. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're resilient.
This general thing in society that it's uncool, is distinctly uncool to be a maths teacher, to like maths. It's nerdy. I embrace the uncool. I am embracing the uncool. I worked in IT. As a woman, I've embraced the uncool for years. It's okay. I did things called Girl Geek dinners. Yeah, it's okay. I'm down with that. And we are going to love it in my room. We're all mathematicians because we're doing maths. And that's it. I'm not having anyone say otherwise. And I think I really want to change the way people talk about that, because I genuinely believe nobody would voluntarily tell you that they're illiterate, but met someone that you haven't seen for ages or that you've never met before, been introduced to them and say, oh, Laura's a teacher. Oh, what do you teach? Well, I teach teenagers, by the way, but maths. And then they say, what subject? Maths. Oh, I'm terrible at maths.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how you do it. You must be really clever. I'm no cleverer than the next person. It's just a thing.
Yeah. But I think what's really scary is the amount of teachers I hear say it when talking to somebody. And I go, oh, I'm a history teacher. I'm like, I have to work really hard at history. It's not natural for me to kind of want to find an interest in that. But I would never say to someone, that's just not my subject. I'd be like, I just have to work harder at it. It just doesn't come naturally to me.
Go on. Well, I think sometimes people are saying it because they're trying to make people not have negative self-feelings about the fact that they find it hard, but they're phrasing it wrong. Just saying I'm bad at it is not helpful.
Yeah.
Saying I have to work hard at it, or oh, I found that challenging at school as well, or whatever, giving people, saying it's okay that it's hard for you. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that you're writing yourself off right now as a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old. No, not do maths. Never been able to do it. Don't know it. And loads of them have written themselves off. I don't know about you, but I am seeing so many girls in particular who have written off themselves as being able to do maths in primary school before they've even got here to me. Like, they clearly have just given up because they don't even have the fundamental skills that they need.
Such a tricky, trying to sort of, I suppose, help them unlearn that kind of mindset. I mean, it comes, I think, so much back to kind of classroom, the kind of culture you're trying to create in your own class, isn't it? And I think, I'm just realizing how it does take time. I suppose half a term in as a qualified teacher, I'm still realizing that it's only now perhaps I feel like I'm beginning to, my culture's really sort of settling, and people are beginning to almost trust me that actually, when I say, own your mistakes, be happy to admit your mistakes, I will admit to my mistakes, and it feels like that takes a while to generate this.
Yeah. And you know what, as well, if you've got 32 kids in front of you, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's the bigger the group, the harder it is, because the easier it is for an individual to just disappear in the wash. And like, if you think about it, if you've got, I don't know, we have 1 hour lessons. In a 1 hour lesson, if 32 kids in the class got less, by the time I've done an intro, they've sat down, got their books out, packed up at the end. So if we chop those bits off, there isn't a minute for each person. There's like, if you're lucky, 10 seconds, maybe 20. If you work with 2, you might have a minute to explain something to both of them. But there's really not time to give to individuals in a big class. So it's only when you get to work with smaller groups that you actually start to really see what's going on, and that so and so is always sat next to their cousin and just copied the answers.
Yeah.
And is really, really good at copying, and their ticks of their work are superb. They can copy and then mark it all as correct.
Yeah.
So who would know, unless you're observing that happening, how would the teacher know that that's what they're doing? If you're in a class of 32, you can do that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And I think that's the other bit I'm finding now, 7, 8 weeks into teaching my classes, you begin to realize all those things. And where do you go to and work through some independent work now? What's to choose around the classroom? Who do you know is likely to not start until you prompt them? Who do you know is going to? And I mean, it's just that sort of. But who do you know who actually? There's a group in the corner who will just all get on with it really well, and you know actually, and you know that they're confident enough that they'll put their hand up if they don't get it. Because, as you say, it's such a huge challenge, and you're trying to deal with all of that whilst also maintaining that overview of the class as you're helping individuals.
We were talking before you joined us about how teaching standard 2 is about how people learn. But actually, the fact I know my kids so much better now, I know how they learn. I can almost start picking out a lot of my children and just going, right, so they struggle with their confidence. I can put them next to someone who's really confident, and I know that they'll help each other. And that isn't a set rule. That's just me knowing the kids well enough.
Yeah.
That's when I felt I've become more effective as a teacher. But it's taken me a half turn to really start seeing those kids more than.
But warning, they change.
Yes.
So, sorry. I've got one class this year. I had them last year. They're year 10s this year. And last year, there was a couple of boys. They worked lovely. They were putting all the effort in and all the rest of it. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened over the summer or whatever else. They came back, and so I'd done a new seating plan for the year because there'd been some moves of option choices and this and the other, so a slightly different class, and they're doing nothing.
No.
And they're just chatting the whole lesson. And I was like, well, I can put them over there because they'll be safe. If they're a safe kid, and I can sit the completely lunatic one next to them because they're like, shut up, I'm getting on with my work. But no, instead, both of them are doing nothing now the whole lesson. And you're like, well, what happened there? What happened there? That's so annoying.
That's something that we probably haven't, because with our 2 placements and then now to the first job, actually haven't yet seen. But I mean, that must be something, I suppose, as well. The people who you've known for several years now, you've presumably seen quite a lot of that. I mean, I find it funny with my year 7 tutor group, trying to imagine them as year 11s. You look at them quite kind of fresh face, new, the smallest kids in the big school.
Yeah.
It's going to be funny when they're the biggest kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you a bit about sort of ECT2, your second year, first one. Before that, I was going to just quickly ask, how did you train, and because it sounds like you were quickly identified as having great potential as a maths teacher, but how did your head of maths headhunted you again, and then how did you do that?
The first thing, so part of what influenced me was also a very good friend of mine had trained to be a maths teacher, and another friend of mine had trained to be an English teacher very recently. They had just finished their ECT as I was kind of saying to myself, oh, I think I might train to be a teacher. And I have to say that a big comfort factor, if you like, or part of the influence on me was seeing women with children like me going through that training. But again, a bit like with children, having role models that were peers was really helpful for me
Yeah.
in feeling that, okay, this isn't outside of the realms of possibility. This is something I can do. So initially I applied through the university route because I didn't really know there was any other route to getting a PGCE other than going to university. So there are a couple of universities nearby. I applied to those, got a place, and then needed to do an SKE, so the subject knowledge enhancement. So I chose to do the longest one. So I chose to do the 20-week one. And I really enjoyed it, actually. I got to say, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning maths. Yeah, very bizarre thing to say, but I did. And I realised that, like my head of maths has said to me, I've actually been doing maths all my life and all my career. I just hadn't really realised that I was doing maths, because I'd never studied maths and I just hadn't thought about it. And I'd been carrying with me the fact that I'm bad at maths from high school. I'd carried that with me all my life, and kids carry it with them as well. And that's important to me. But I still have all my notebooks and I still use them. Sometimes when I'm teaching a topic, I think, oh, there was that little thing that we did, and I'm going to go back and have a look at that and do it with the class. But so I did the SKE and I got my place at university, and then the whole topic of placements came up. And what I discovered was that through the university route, it's kind of like this random lottery, and they just put you anywhere. And it's anywhere within kind of 35 miles of the university, which if you're in a rural area is a very big area. And when I had then a daughter in year 9 who was really struggling to access school at all, and a year 7, he was at the time, boy who has a huge EHCP and also struggles to get to school, the concept of having to potentially drive over an hour from home for a school that may start at 8:15 in the morning,
Yeah.
and get my own children to school was just too much for me. It was just, I sort of was on the point of a breakdown there, because I thought, I just can't do this. I'm just going to have to ditch this whole concept altogether. There's no way I can do this. And that was actually when I came across Now Teach. Lecturer at the university was just sent out an email to anybody who'd applied to the course who was a career changer, and said, there's this organisation called Now Teach. They'd like to invite you to get in touch with them. So I got in touch with Now Teach and had this kind of conversation with them. And that was my start of my journey with them, which was fantastic, because they said, well, have you heard of like a SCITT, a school-centred placement? Because my school was saying to the university, well, we want Laura in our school to do her placement. We already know her. She's a known quantity, and we want to support her in that change. And the university were like, no, you don't get to choose. It's a lottery. And then they even went as far as saying, no, we're not going to send her there because her daughter's at school there. We won't let her go there at all. So that's definitely off the cards, which seemed a bit ridiculous to me, because so many teachers work in schools where their children go.
Yeah.
And so it's a very bizarre line in the sand, in my opinion. But there you go. So they made it clear that there was no way of crossing that hurdle with them. And my school had never worked with a SCITT before, because we're in a weird we're on the edge of 2 counties. And so we kind of fell a bit outside that one and a bit outside that one. I contacted a SCITT and said to them, I really want to do this. I've got the support of the curriculum leads. Pretty sure the head teacher's on board. Could I do that with you? And they were like, we've wanted to work with your school for ages, but we've never had an in. So yes, but it was 5 days before the end of term. And I had to reapply through the UCAS thing to the new thing, go through the interview process, do an interview lesson, and be accepted and unaccept the role at the university before the end of term, because everybody disappears then.
Yeah.
So it was like this mad rush at the end of term, and we did it. And that was thanks to Now Teach. Actually went in, they talked to the SCITT, they talked to me, they talked to the school, and they kind of facilitated that and made everyone realise that it would be okay. And so that's how I've ended up being. I did my big placement direct in the school. So yeah.
That's awesome. So then presumably a shorter placement, not too far away.
Yes, not too far away. which was fantastic. Actually, that was at a brilliant school as well. Kind of similar-ish, but also different. Same kids, different setting. Yeah, about half an hour away. But at that point, I was into the swing of, I'd been doing the work, and it was a lot easier to do that second placement.
Yeah.
Although, do you want to hear the little story about what happened during that placement? So during my second placement,
Of course.
well, so there was two critical things. Is number one, I got a job at my school because they advertised for it. So with the skit, by the way, just how that worked for the one that I was on, I really enjoyed. And I would really recommend it to anybody who's doing career change, because it's more like you go straight into being a teacher than feeling like a student in a university. I found that a little bit challenging, I've got to say, as an adult. But there were lots of young people on the skit as well. But you negotiate with your placement school. They want you there. They interview you, and you do an interview lesson with them. So I taught an interview lesson. I got to say that was quite funny, because the head of maths got me to teach his top set, and he gave me a topic, and it was fine. It was statistics, and it was an introduction to statistics. Now, actually, statistics, my degree was in statistics, even though I told you that I was rubbish at maths and never did maths. My degree was into statistics, but clearly that's not maths. I don't think he knew that. So he sent me in there, and afterwards he laughed and he said, "Oh, I thought I was like throwing you to the wolves then, but you actually handled that really well. So you can definitely be a teacher." Because there was a particular student in that class who was he's autistic, and the tip I had was that he will put his hand up at the beginning of the lesson as soon as you say what the topic is, and basically if you say yes, he will tell your whole lesson. And the teacher said, just ruin the whole lesson by just telling everyone what the lesson is and that he already knows it. So he was like, warning, let's see how you handle him. And also, the head of maths hated teaching statistics. So that's why he gave it to me, because he was like, it's a horrible lesson. I hate doing it. I'm going to give it to you. But I love statistics. So I was like, oh, statistics, great. And so I stood there. The boy, he put his hand up, but I managed him. And apparently he was only going to get me to do 15 minutes, but he let me do the whole lesson because it was good. He said there was no need to stop you. You're doing great. And so when the young man put his hand up again later in the lesson, he asked a question. It was well beyond GCSE, but I was like, okay, so this, because I've done it for my degree. So it wasn't a problem, And so it was good. It was a good lesson, but it was quite funny because it was like, I'm going to give you this because it's horrible. I was like, that was a bit mean, wasn't it? Like, can you give me something nice? And he was like, oh.
But I mean, what a great way to show what you were capable of.
Yeah. Dave, we did our enrolment before the start of term. We went in and we had our day and we met all the other people on the course. There was only two of us doing maths. Another older lady who'd been working as an unqualified teacher for 10 years in her school, and myself. Day one, first day of term, we were in school from the start. We had our classes assigned to us. It wasn't like an apprenticeship, so you weren't just left on your own. I was with my mentor or with another teacher for the whole year. But how we talked about it to the kids was that we were co-teaching that class, and I felt that gave me like more authority with the classes as a PGCE student, because it wasn't like, oh, welcome to our PGCE student, that halfway through the term kind of thing. It was like, it is a teacher, we're teaching together. And I felt that made it a really nice experience for me, being integrated in the school right from the start. And then it was like I was a part-time member of staff, really, because just one day a week I would go to university, which wasn't even at the university. It was at a school where we did the training part of it. And so I had a class right from the start. And I've actually got the same one of those classes still now. I've had them their whole time at school, and I've still got them. They're in year 11 now. They're about to sit their GCSEs, and I'm their only ever maths teacher. They've always had another bit of teachers in the room and this, that, and the other. But if you ask them, I am their maths teacher.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I don't know whether you've had this yet, but children are very possessive of their teachers.
Yes. We've just had class changes from our year 7s. I had a few conversations with them beforehand, just saying, look, we're going to class changes. If you have concerns, please let me know. I can definitely express your concerns to everybody else. And what was nice is that they said, I feel safe with you. I feel
Yeah.
safe to learn with you. And I was like, I could not ask for anything more as a teacher.
No, that's the best bit, isn't it? But those are the moments that make you be a teacher, right? And it's like really nice when you get those just little reminders, and it's just a little thank you. That's enough. It didn't do it for a thank you or anything else, but when you get those, it reminds you that's what you're doing it for, actually. So
And I
yeah,
think
it's
from the PGCE to the ECT one, and having more communication with parents, having more of that ownership over being responsible for these kids' progression. I know it might, in the very beginning,
it's scary, right?
yeah, I felt the scariness, but
It's
now
huge responsibility.
I feel like I have a year 10 class, and I've just called a lot of their parents to kind of like update them on how they're going. And I felt really proud to be able to manage that and feel like I could do that job. Where during the PGCE, you're part of the conversations, but you don't know them. You've not seen them. But now,
and I think that's what was different with the skit is I was in school, in fact, because I had a tutor group with my mentor. And then when I did my second placement, we just said to them, she's going to do a placement to see what it's like in another school. And I just went for 6 weeks, and then I came back again and was their tutor. And that is why I think there's not enough knowledge about the skits. Like, why aren't people shouting about it and how good it is? As a career change teacher, it meant I didn't have to go all the way to a university. A lot of our lectures were done virtually or available virtually. So how it worked for us was it was like every other week kind of alternated. Once a fortnight, you would go and meet with everybody, and it would be a more generic kind of PGCE topic. And then the other fortnight, we would go and see our subject tutors. And because there was only 2 of us doing maths, we basically had almost one-to-one, tuition from a fantastic maths teacher in her school. And I actually went there for my second placement as well. So that was really nice because we'd heard about her kind of methods and things, and then I saw it and used it in practice. So it worked really well for me. But I do actually think that being integrated into the school had a huge difference on my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it because you were there for like a TA as well, and obviously then your skit.
Well, the transition from being a TA to a teacher was difficult, actually, because it's all right now, but that first year, kids didn't know what my role was.
Yeah, I see that.
It was a little bit hazy for them. Was I still a TA or was I a teacher? So not the ones that were new to school that year. To them, it was, they didn't know any different. But for the ones who were there already, especially because I was in the classroom with another teacher, they were like, well, are you a TA or are you a teacher? Because there's a teacher in the room and then there's you. Like, so which one are you? I was really lucky to have the respect of my peers and my colleagues in school because I'd worked with them before and they knew what I was doing and all the rest of it. And so I just think that could have been hard if you didn't have that. But the other teachers were fully behind me. And so there was no question from the kids, if you know what I mean, because the adults were supporting it. But it was a little bit like grey area at first.
And I think the bit I keep going back to, because I really did look at the skip route, and I initially thought it was going to work best for me, but it was actually the logistics of getting to schools that worked better for me with the PGCE. But I feel it's just fascinating that we can have these different routes into teaching, and yet, you get to that sort of place of settling in your first teaching job in different ways. But it's fascinating how many different routes people take in, and so many people have got background, and I can see the strength that having been a TA, you must have seen so many lessons, and you've seen what works, you've seen what didn't work. That must have been an amazing experience to have already.
Well, like I said, I was actually a TA that was on my own most of the time, not in a classroom, but I was doing small group interventions basically. So I hadn't actually seen that much. And actually doing the pupil pursuits on the PGC was awesome. And I saw probably the best lesson I've ever seen, and also probably the worst, in the same day with the same kid. That was good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Fraction of a Teacher. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed recording it. Please share a link with your fellow teachers and friends. New episodes released every Tuesday morning at 5 o'clock.
And if you do love it, I suggest you hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and follow us on social media at Fraction of a Teacher Podcast for updates so you never miss anything.
We do love hearing from you with your questions, your thoughts, and your ideas. So if you have any, please email us at fractionoat@gmail.com. Until next time, keep smiling.
And keep solving those problems.